So I'm Sam Bompas of Bompas Parr, I got that. And we go on food adventures. And hopefully, after tonight, you will be inspired to go on adventures of your own. And I'll show you not only how easy that is to do, but also over the course of the evening, well, the next 15 minutes, give away all my secrets of everything that I've learnt, or all the best things that I've learnt in the last 7 years of doing it. Some of them are pretty hard fought as well, some of them very easy. So it's three main things, we'll go through them. And I think with that, those will be our secrets of taste, and hopefully you'll go away and do some marvellous and inventive inspired things for them. So anyway, so at Bompas Parr, we make jelly. They asked us to talk exclusively about jelly, but we wanted to blow the doors open on some other stuff we're excited as well. So we do things like chewing gum factories, ziggurats of flavour. We just made a whiskey tornado earlier this year, which sort of was quite a lot of fun. A chocolate waterfall, which was the biggest nightmare of anything. In fact, everyone said they'd walk out of my studio and never come back if we ever do anything else with chocolate again. And I think they've forgotten that because there was a lot of chocolate going on today, which was quite interesting. Hopefully, so I think Olivia's there moulding jellies, so she didn't hear that, so we've got to keep quiet. But I think we're sort of really best known for, where am I pointing this? Oh, making jelly. There we go. And I think the thing about jelly is it's really rather magnificent and wonderful. And even after 7 years of working with one single ingredient, there are still many things that we're finding out about it. And it's sort of funny as well, because when we started off, sort of very much intertwined with the guys here at Innocent. We started off and you know, our great ambition was just to do something really very fun on the weekend. And we sort of looked around, we went to Borough Market, and we looked around, they had all sorts of marvellous, very sort of stodgy dishes. It's close, it was sort of between my house and Harry's house, who's the other chap here. They had all sorts of marvellous dishes, but they're all very savoury. And I think at that point, they didn't even have any ice cream. So we thought the thing that they really need, the thing they really must have is jelly. And it was a very short thought process. We didn't really think it out at all. There was probably a reason why everyone didn't have jelly. And we phoned them up. We said, we've got the best thing for you possible. It's jelly. This is what you really, really need. Well, they didn't even get back to us, which is a minor setback. But we thought, well, let's explore the jelly. Let's take it out there and see if we can give it away to people. And the first people that we managed to persuade, we thought was an ultimate coup to give it away to, was the lovely team at Innocent. And they were having their village fete, and they had their VNP area, which I think for Innocent means very nice people area. And we managed to get a stall there and to give it away to all the people that came along. And we didn't really know what we're doing then. I think we go back a slide. There you are. I think we could just about afford IKEA Tupperware because we knew that the jelly had to be moulded because that's when it's really special. And we just about knew about 2 recipes. We had one that was sort of fresh strawberry, which was really good, also the whole fruit. But I know that was about it. We had large ambitions though, and I think in their VIP area there was a journalist, and quite ambitiously we told the journalist we could make jellies in any shape or any size, and she wrote about this. And very soon we worked out that we'd have to fulfill this because we couldn't. And actually, almost immediately, someone called up and said, "Can you make a jelly the shape of a castle, the size of a castle?" Which is a little bit daunting because if you make them that big, they sort of collapse under their own weight. But we sort of kept them speaking. We got our first catering job, which is a 12-course Victorian breakfast, which I think I'll show later. But after we sort of muscled through that because it was pretty daunting. Neither Harry nor I had been in a kitchen before. He went into this kitchen. Harry was there, and I was getting the sort of 1,000 pieces of cutlery to do this 12-course breakfast. And I was very late. I called Harry up. I said, look, Harry, I'm really late. It's going very badly. What are you doing? And he said, well, I've worked out how to turn the oven on. And I said, well, what are you going to be doing for the next 40 minutes until I get there? He said, well, I'm going to carry on practicing, and then maybe by the time you get there, it will be all right. But after we got through that, we worked out really we did need to learn how to make jellies properly in different shapes. And Harry trained as an architect, so although we couldn't afford those beautiful copper molds, we worked out that we could use some CAD design and use it to do the very serious thing of making jellies and then 3D printing them. But then you get these absolutely extraordinary results, which is, that's a jelly St. Paul's Cathedral. And then we thought, well, actually, if we can do that, let's really push ourselves. And if we can do that one thing. So we'd made literally at this stage one jelly. And we said, okay, any architects design a jelly in any shape or form you want, and we'll make your dreams come true. And you can literally, it can be a pencil sketch, it can be a proper CAD render. And for some reason, I think this is back in 2008, for some reason, architects got really, really into it, and they all went wild. And we had entries from all over the world, and we very quickly learned a lot. I'm into sort of steep learning curves. If you just promise a lot, then you have to learn very, very quickly, immediately, and that's a good thing to set yourself. So Lord Foster came back with this. It was his Millennium Bridge. If you know, the Millennium Bridge wobbled. It was pretty disastrous. They had to go back and re-engineer it. This, as a jelly, as a medium, don't do bridges. It was disastrous. We had to go back in and re-engineer it, so you can see there's a bit of perspex in there holding it up. But other people were a lot better at the jellies. So there was Lord Foster, Lord Rogers even, Richard Rogers, did Bracas Airport in Madrid. And if anyone knows Bracas Airport, it uses all the different columns all the way along are different coloured. And their studio was great. It was all very fruity, until they got to blues. And they just ran out, and then they just started whacking in absinthe and things like that, and blue curacao. It was the only way. So, but we had all these jellies. So we thought, right, what's the biggest thing we can do? Because we've got hundreds of different jelly recipes. Let's put on an event. So we put tickets on sale, and surprisingly, sold 2,000 of them quite quickly. At which point we thought we're going to be lynched, because the jellies typically, and you'll see some jellies in a second, I hope they're all being unmolded, they're very, very small, because if you make them big, you've got to put so much gelatin in them that they turn into a rubber ball. You wouldn't want to eat them at all. It's disgusting. You want them to just melt delicately in your mouth as soon as you eat them. So we realized that basically we're going to have a problem. I'll try clicking that way now. Because the jellies are so small that 2,000 people are going to go, what's this? This is ridiculous. So what we did is we massed up loads of them, and then we used every possible trick we could think of to give people an amazing time and give people a sort of strawberry time. So the air was delicately scented with strawberries. There was so we recorded the sound of jelly wobbling in an anechoic chamber, which, if you listen to it, became the most watched video that New Scientist had ever released. Which goes a lot about some of their videos, but it just sounds absolutely sort of pornographic. We had these wonderful sort of jelly spoon dancers, sort of undulating. And then, well, it started off quite seriously, and then it slowly decayed into jelly wrestling. And sort of at the back there, I think you can just see a point of light up there. That's Heston's head. And he was very seriously trying to avoid being dragged into the jelly wrestling pit as it sort of went downhill. And that's when we found out one of the golden rules of jelly, which is at 11 o'clock, all of them get thrown. And it doesn't matter how salubrious the company is, they will take your jellies and chuck them around. And we also learned about, as Kirsten was saying, cleaning up, at which point we didn't quite realize, we had a plan to get it all up, didn't quite realize how much mess a couple thousand people can make. And so as myself, Harry, and somehow like my parents, cleaning up, the entire lawn was dyed red until, for a good 5 or 6 hours, until 6 in the morning. So yeah, it's having a clean up, doing the clean up is always very important. But then it was quite fun because we had the jellies, and it's amazing because then we could really do it. And jelly sort of took us on this adventure all over the world with sort of one medium. So we did jellies for people's weddings, jellies for people's funerals, which actually starts off as a joke for Michael Jackson's funeral, in a, well, maybe it's a bad taste way. And we had served them at Bistro with waiters with a single white glove. But then got very, very serious because someone called us up and actually commissioned us to make a jelly for the funeral. And then we went across to Australia, and I think that something had been filtering across in a slightly wrong way because the oldest funeral home there called us up and asked us to give a very serious talk about funeral food. And there was actually quite an interesting sort of relationship between moulded foods and funeral food, but it's not. It was never jelly. There's never historically been any jelly funeral food, and they got all these different cultural practitioners from from a Chinese background, from a Jewish background, from a Greek Orthodox background, and a Protestant background, and they all talked very seriously. Of course, all the whole funeral home was filled with people. And everyone was very, very serious as well because all the funeral home staff, they only normally do events that are funerals. So when everyone came, they sort of very sternly ushered people in and said, would you like to sign the book? And so everyone awkwardly didn't really know what to do. And then we had to entertain them with jelly, which was interesting. And this is where we did all the interviews. And we did one interview actually sitting in a coffin, which was definitely bad taste. But it was quite an adventure. And actually, they said that when they phoned us up, they said, "Look, we can't really pay you for doing this talk, but what we can do is we can give you one of our hearses for while you're in Melbourne." So we got to motor around Melbourne in this hearse, which was just absolutely brilliant. It was really fun. So jellies for America, Jello, fashion. This is a jelly as art as well. Apparently, in the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, they're doing an exhibition on design and the human body, and they said, "Well, could you do a jelly for it? Because that's apparently where design and the human body meet." And we said, "Well, no problem." We went out there and we did them a lovely jelly, and it was sort of glowing in the dark. And then they said, "Could you stand up and say a few words about what your art means?" And at which point, we just had to say, "No, the art will speak for itself." And, and we're going to go have a glass of sherry. But it's sort of exploding jellies, so we're really into explosions. Actually, I don't know why, we've got really, really into explosions recently. We're always discovering sort of new things. So this is really fun. Hopefully I'm not going to set the fire alarms off, although there is a risk of this. So we start off, and it's quite a lot. We started off, and a photographer I know called Ryan Hopkinson said, "Look, I'd really like to shoot your jellies." And we're like, "Oh, I'm a bit bored of that, but we'd really like to do some stuff with explosions." And he said, "Fine, let's do it." So we got a very fast camera and we did it. And at this time point, we're doing tons and tons of jelly for people's weddings. And we realized the reason why people were ordering wedding cakes is, jellies instead of wedding cakes, is actually, when you go to a wedding, the cake's kind of stodgy. You've had a lot of nice food. It's pretty disgusting. And you want something that has all that spectacle of the cake, all the spectacle and tradition, but it's a little bit lighter and a little bit different. And also, if you go, and my sister's going to a wedding every single weekend this summer, when you go to that many, you want to do something a little bit different. And then we realized, actually, what people really wanted was the most famous wedding of all their friends. So in competitive wedding, theirs was awesome. And they didn't actually really even care about the jelly at all. And what was even more fun is if we just put a load of pyro in it and blew the whole thing up. And you can't keep any of the sort of top tier for the christening or anything like that. You lose that, but everyone talks about your wedding. So that was quite a lot of fun. But anyway, so we've now really pushed it, and this is edible. This is a moss actually, and I've got to sort of aim it right. And no, that was disappointing. I didn't aim it right, but I'm a bit worried by that cloud. I'll try and do it over here, because if that cloud catches, it would be terrible. So this is, so that's quite fun. But it's edible. But if you scale that up, not in here, you can create some quite impressive fireballs, which is what kind of things we're looking at the moment. It's not got a lot to do with food, but this does. Okay, so actually, sorry, the secret with jelly is we just use 1 leaf of gelatin per 100 ml, and the fine chefs here would probably be aghast at that because it sets it just so solidly. But we do a lot of catering, and if you're at someone's wedding and the speech is going on a little bit long, and you've set the jelly any weaker than that, and it's a hot day, and they're like, can you just hold it? Can you hold it? And you see these things turning into puddles in front of your eyes. So that one you get a 40-minute window from it coming out of the fridge to be able to get it on the table. And at which point, actually, that's a good time to have the jelly. If everyone together could chant with me, bring out the jelly, then the jelly will emerge, and you can tuck in and you can use that fine spoon. Okay, so if you go, bring out the jelly, bring out the jelly, you have to be a bit louder. Bring out the jelly, that's brilliant. Bring out the jelly, out the jelly. Bring out the jelly. Bring out the jelly. Bring out the jelly. Here we are, thank you. Well done. Brilliant. So there are about 5 different sorts of jellies. You need to take a spoonful, put it in, you should have a bowl, and then pass it on, and we'll see how far all of those can go. And some of them are quite alcoholic, and none of them are vegetarian. None, sorry. If people want to know the flavors, the green one is absinthe and pineapple. The pyramid is in the shape of the Melbourne Funeral Memorial, and that's spiced pineapple and blancmange with marbled raspberry. The yellow one is lemon, violet, raspberry and blancmange. And the dark one, actually, is a really good one, because that's blackcurrant and creme de menthe, and apparently that's the best, that's the hot ticket. But get everyone to pass them all round, have a spoonful, and watch the wobble. Okay, fantastic. So I'm now going to talk about, you can actually sort of ignore this bit, it's not as important. Focus on the jelly. Actually, I'm going to embarrass myself. I don't even know how to pronounce this word. It's Gesundkunstwerk, I think. Yes, can anyone speak German? Can anyone speak German? Yes, there's someone over there. How do I say that? Perfect, thank you very much. Okay, so it's what that word is. It means total work of art. And it's sort of used by Wagner a lot to describe opera. And his approach to opera, which is almost like total sensory assault. And that, after learning all those hard tricks with jellies and the very small jellies, is how we've always approached food, namely because we don't have a culinary training or a culinary background, and quite often we've got to serve food up against people like Florence, who are just, the gods of this game. And people know when they're having that sort of meal, and they come to us, we're never going to be able to compete on the food, so we've got to pull out some other different little bits. And you can do that too as well. I guess it's using some of the tips and techniques that Kirsten was talking about to give yourself, well, at least, if not cover yourself in glory, but at least mean that people go away saying that's amazing. So I think there's an amazing bit of research. My favourite bit of research ever was done by a chap called Professor John Edwards, and he was a scientist. He took one dish, chicken a la king, which, if you don't know it, it's what gets tipped over Tom Cruise's head in Cocktails. So it's a creamy chicken dish, and what he did is he served in lots and lots of different environments. And When he served it somewhere a little bit crap, like an old people's home. Well, it's not, I don't know, it depends on the old people's home. When he served it somewhere with low expectations, then people said, oh, it's stringy, horrible, like a student halls of residence. Oh, it's gross, it's unsatisfying. When he served it somewhere like a fine dining restaurant, people would be like, oh, it's tender, it's moist, it's deeply satisfying, good value for money. The environment you serve the food in has such an importance, it's such a massively profound impact on the way that the food is appreciated, that if you look to change that, you can do sort of wonders. And so this is the first sort of catering event we ever did. Actually, this is one of the secrets. So we had this really nice room. It was supposed to be this 12-course sort of Victorian breakfast. It was slightly enhanced. You can see sort of there behind, there's a waxwork of Queen Victoria looming rather ominously behind people. But it was just in such a gorgeous environment that no one actually noticed that the scones were actually from Tesco up the road when we ran out of time on the day of the event. But if you serve something there, which is that's an old pumping station for sewage, you can even get away with that. It's quite literally a shit environment, and it's wonderful. Or I think if you go somewhere like that, that's a friend of mine, Fiona Leahy. She's really into gold. Doesn't really matter what you serve, and I think mainly she was focused on champagne, but it's going to be extraordinary. So I think that's really sort of informed our approach to food all the way. And I think this is our other top secret as well, which I think definitely bad taste. And we've done it quite a lot. It's quite often we do stuff on such a small budget, and we found that the cheapest and most awe-inspiring table decoration is a pig's head, which you get for about £5, covered in hundreds of thousands. And you drop that on the table, and you've really got everyone's attention. It can go two different ways. Sometimes people walk out, but sometimes people come up and they say, oh, this is the best meal I've had. It's really, really great. So I think we've sort of always tried to apply that ethos of total sensory assault to when we're doing sort of food-based installations and trying to do things even more on an architectural scale. So it's creating a cloud of gin and tonic that you absorb through your lungs and eyeballs, flooding buildings with booze that you sort of boat across, and that's kind of disgusting as well, because it's almost like someone's got to the ice cube in your drink and gone like this over it, and not contaminated your drink. But if you do it in the right way, it can be good taste. You walk a sort of line of danger when you're doing things with big food. And I think it sort of informs one of our most recent installations, which was this sort of Mercedes drive-through. And Mercedes came to us, they said, we want to do a proper art installation. And they said, we sort of thought very hard about it, and really the answer was very, very simple, because we do food and spectacle, and they make cars. So it's like, right, that's it, London needs a drive-through. Hurrah! And we want to do it in the best way possible. So we just applied that approach. So here we had, the car. Cars are kind of like they're sometimes very bad for dining. They've got some really negative things, like you're sitting next to each other, which is good if you've got a difficult conversation to have. I remember my parents telling me about the facts of life or something, because you don't have to have that eye contact. But very bad in a dining scenario where you want a 90 degrees angle between the main participants, ideally. But it is very good because you can very carefully control what it smells like. So we did that with salami-based air fresheners dangling from the rearview mirror. And you can carefully control what it sounds like as well. So we had Mortadella CDs, which had the correct music, and roller girls as well, which are great, and bodybuilders behind the back bar. But with fast food. So if you put it all together, not always good taste, but you can make the food taste good. And I think that's important. So finally, I just want to get very enthusiastic about the thing I'm obsessed by at the moment, which is not totally food safe or food regulated, but it is safe for the environment. And I'm just in love with it. It is gorgeous. And it is fluorescein, which is my favorite chemical in the world right now. And they use it to dye the Chicago River green each year. And actually, it's funny because we started this as sort of like a real loss of morals. When we started out, we thought we would never, ever use any artificial dyes ever. And we're going to make every single dish that we made using sort of natural products. And we went on the sort of slippery slope downhill, and we're sort of twisting ourselves in knots, because if you make a lemon jelly, it's a really uninspiring sort of whitish colour. And so you then end up putting a bit of orange juice in it, fresh orange juice, to take it to the right lemon-coloured yellow, which you start finding a bit odd. And then you start thinking about it, and you're like, right, well, I've got to make a really beautiful red jelly, but I'll put a bit of Campari in it, because that'll get me the right red colour. And then you realise that the Campari's just got a load of cochineal in it, which is E133, I think. And so you then start thinking, well, actually, maybe it's just easiest if rather than doing that, and I've got to sort out all the flavours again to get rid of that Campari flavour or enhance it. But maybe I'll just put a bit of red food dye in it, and then you just think, fuck it. Let's use some food dye and make the food look really beautiful, or entire rivers. And so, actually, we managed to steal, because in Chicago, they keep it a deadly secret. They won't tell anyone what the chemical is. And we got a sample of the water from Chicago, and then we sent it to the leading UK dye specialists, who are aptly called dyes.co.uk. And they said, well, that's very, very easy. It's just fluorescein. And just a few, basically about a litre or a couple litres can do that. Or enable us to do our favourite jelly project last year, which was making, finally, a really, really big jelly. So this was a 55-ton jelly, setting Isabel Kingdom Brunel's ship, the SS Great Britain, in jelly. And it's quite hard work. And it was one of those projects that came about by popular demand, because there were 10 artists, and any museum could bid for them. And all the other artists did the really sensible thing, and they said, you know what, if we win the bids, then we'll come to your museum and we'll give just a talk. And we said, we'll come to your museum and do anything you want us to do. Which then meant we started getting some really strange bids from odd museums around the country. There was one off in the Outer Hebridean Isles and said, our island museum is just a shed. We'll have a big bonfire, but we've got loads of whiskey. It'll be fun. So that sounded quite intriguing, but not as intriguing as the tiny museum that was attached to a nuclear reactor that said, can you come and make a glow-in-the-dark nuclear reactive jelly, and we'll contain it. But I think the one that was too much was these guys said, look, just set our massive ship in jelly. It's a Grade 1 listed monument. And when we went down, and the people in Bristol found out about it, and they started getting the vote out on Twitter and the newspapers campaign. They said, bring this, let's make the jelly happen. And they won, and we sat down with the museum curators. We said, well, what's going on? They said, well, it's a bit of a funny story. We entered as a joke because we didn't really think we'd win, but I think we've now got to go through with it. And we said, well, we only ticked that as a joke because we didn't really think that we'd ever have to make this bloody enormous jelly, but it's such a good idea, and this is a great thing. When you have a good idea, it just has the energy just to carry itself, and that's really awesome. That we said, well, let's do it. So we got together, and we went together to the Arts Council. We said, okay, we're on for it. What's the budget? And they said, we've got £500. And at which point we're a little bit worried. But we had loads of sodium alginate, which if you can shear thicken, and over time it'll set to a nice gel. And we said, well, look, we've got basically a pallet of this ingredient that we'll put in for free, but what we're going to need is a load of labour. And they said, okay, that's fine, we'll sort it out. And we turned up on the day, we said, well, have you got our labour? And they said, yes, we've got all the local community payback team, who are all the ex-cons who have to do their community service, which was, I know there were some very, very interesting people to work with. They were pretty tough. One of them had a scar right across his face, and it was called Hammer. But they made the jelly. It was gorgeous and made all our dreams come true. So this stuff is incredible. And so just a single drop in here just will dye that whole jug up in the most beautiful way. I don't know, can you see that against the... I've even put too much in it, but it's really quite mesmerizing. And you can also drink it as well, even though it's that lurid. But it will make your piss green. Yeah, so if you think about that, how much can you do with this? So this is what we're really excited about. And seeing if, and we've actually done quite a lot of research with a chap called Dr. Gherkin, who's a biophysicist at Bristol University. And we're trying at the moment to dye the Thames green with it. So that's the next thing. So you've always got to have something to aim for, and then you can do it, which is fun. So this will dye the Thames green. So thank you very much. I hope that's helpful in some way. And yeah, see you in the break. Cool.